Today we have a question to answer, and someone says, I want to learn how to produce chicken feed, but the raw materials I have are corn residue, crayfish residue, eggshells, palm kernel nut shafts, and it's actually a wonderful combination of materials that can give us one of the best chicken feeds, which is quite cheap, actually almost free, because she says she can easily access all these materials locally for free. Therefore, stick around and watch this video until the end as we attempt to answer this wonderful question. If you also have a question about anything around chicken, you can easily submit it to us on that WhatsApp number or in the comment section. If possible, we can try as much as we can to respond as fast as we can. We start with the constraints of the question, one of which is she says she can easily and actually locally source all the mentioned materials for free, meaning that we are attempting to make cheap chicken feed, which is actually almost free, because you see we almost have everything that we need to make chicken feed. Therefore, if one could access the above materials or the materials that we have mentioned, then they have almost made it to making cheap chicken feed or almost free chicken feed. And we start by that. And again, she's saying she is having commercial layers. She has considered commercial layers, and this means the feed that we are going to be making is that for commercial layers. And they are 70 in number, but the feed we make applies to any number. Its quality will apply to any number. But for her, she has 70 commercial layers. And again, she is interested in formulation. How best can we combine the above materials to come up with starter feed? Come up with the best starter feed. And after starter feed, how best can we formulate them to form some good chick mash? It also applies to chick mash. And again, how best can we combine the materials to make some good growers mash? And lastly, use the same materials to make layers mash. It's actually possible, and it's what we are going to be demonstrating in today's presentation. Otherwise, welcome to Creative Farm Projects YouTube channel, and thank you for joining with us. If one is new on this channel, consider subscribing plus hitting that notification bell so that you don't miss out any of our future videos. And today we mention at Andrew Chizito 6892. Thank you for always being in class and responding to our presentations. And as we begin today's presentation, we wish to forward to you our heartfelt piece of advice that please do not wait to start your poultry farm because you are worried about the feeds formulas and how you are going to feed your chicken anyway. The truth is, feeding chicken becomes quite challenging, especially when you are starting, but the truth is you ought to start and you will easily learn how to do it. And without wasting any more time, allow us to respond to the question. We have summarized our response into a simple table which is going to comprise of the available materials, actually the materials that we have, which we can still call the ingredients. Then we shall have a column for starter feed, the formula for starter feed. Then after the starter feed, we shall consider the chick mash. And maybe before that, we always consider giving starter feed or feeding our chicken on starter feed from day 1 up to 7 days. Then for the chick mash, we always introduce our chicks to chick mash from 7 days up to 8 weeks. But sometimes this is also applicable. You can introduce chick mash to your day-old chicks, and you'll give them chick mash from day 1 up to 8 weeks. So it is also applicable to exclude the starter feed, which are always pellets. And now we go to the growers mash, and for the growers mash, we shall feed our chicken on growers mash starting from the 8th week up to 18th week. Then we have the layers mash, and for this layers mash, it is the type of chicken feed that we shall feed our layers during the laying time, or from 18 weeks onwards we shall be feeding our chicken on what we call layers mash. And in most cases we rear these commercial layers for a period of around up to 3 years. Therefore we shall mainly be feeding our chicken for this entire period on what we call layers mash. So it is a very important feeds formula that we need to get by our fingertips. And these are the available materials. She says she has some corn residue, and then secondly she says she can access what we call palm kernel nut shafts, very nutritious ingredient, then eggshells, the eggshells, and lastly she says she can access what we call crayfish residue. But of course we need a few more ingredients for us to be in position to make the best chicken feed, or some chicken feed which is going to be complete. We shall be mentioning those other ingredients as we proceed with the presentation. Now we go straight to what we called the starter feed. This is always a premixed feed. So when you bring in your layer chicken for the first 7 days, you can choose to feed them on what we call starter feed. This feed is not going to be made from these ingredients, but you simply go out there in the stores where they sell chicken feed and buy the starter feed. They are always pellets. You can easily have them. And for our 70 layer chicks, we only need around 1 kilogram of this starter feed to feed our chicken from day 1 up to day 7. We are not going to go into details of how we come up with these formulas, but we have studied the materials and chosen the best proportions that we can use to make these chicken feeds. And we have now gone to the chick mash. We are going to always start with 100 kilograms of the corn residue, and then we see the quantity of the other materials that we can add and get the best chicken feed. And now in 100 kilograms of the corn residue, we only need to add 13 kilograms of the palm kernel nut shafts, which is always in powder form. So we always grind those shafts into powder and add 13 in 100 kilograms of the corn residue. Now we have gotten a range of quantity of this ingredient that we can add in 100 kgs of corn residue. So the range is around 10 kilograms and 15. So we are going to be varying this quantity depending on the performance of our birds. We can choose to increase a bit or reduce a bit. And now when we go to eggshells, you know, these are sources of calcium. We shall need to add only 3 kilograms of eggshells in 100 kgs of corn residue. Much as we also have a range of, you know, weights, we can a bit reduce, but 3 kilograms could be enough and is enough to give us the best chick mash. And now for the crayfish remains or residue, we shall need to add around 10 kilograms of this ingredient. These are rich in proteins, and remember our chicks need these proteins at this stage. So we shall add between 7 kilograms to 12 kilograms depending on performance, but on average 10 kilograms of crayfish residue is enough. And now to make our chick mash complete, we are going to add these very important ingredients, and one of them is what we call premix, and then secondly it is salt. We always call it animal salt. These are very essential ingredients that we must always include in our chicken feeds, and so we advise we need to add them to our formulas as well. one needs not to worry about them because they are one of the cheapest ingredients that we use to make chicken feed, and we need few amounts. For example, we need only half a kilogram of premix in 100 kgs of corn residue, and only 1 kilogram of animal salt in 100 kilograms of corn residue. So we need small amounts, which will keep it a bit cheap for us to make our chicken feed. And on average, you only need 65 kilograms of this chick mash to feed your 70 layer chicks from day 1 up to 8 weeks. For the first 8 weeks, you only need 65 kilograms. But when you add up the quantities that we have mixed using this formula of starting with 100 kilograms, you realize we get up to 127.5 kilograms. So for our 70 chicks, we can choose to have all the ingredients. So we start with 50 kilograms of the corn residue, then we add 7.5 kilograms of the kernel nut shafts, then we add 1.5 of the eggshells, and then add 5 kilograms of the crayfish remains, and then a quarter kilogram of the premix, and then half a kilogram of the animal salt. And in total it will give us 64 and 3/4, which is around 65 kilograms. So for our 70 chicks, we only need to start with 50 kilograms of the corn residue. And now let's go straight to the grower's mash. The values that we are seeing are the quantities that we have mixed to make, the grower's mash that we need for our 70 layer chicken. And on average, you need around 450 kilograms of this grower's mash to feed your 70 layer chicken from 8 weeks up to laying time, which always comes after maybe 18 weeks. But now for the grower's mash, when we start with 100 kilograms of the corn residue, we get around 132 kilograms of our grower's mash. Remember, we want around 450 kilograms, so we shall need to multiply by some factor for us to get that quantity of chicken feed. And when we multiply by 3.5, it is the best quantity to give us a figure which is around 450 kilograms of the grower's mash. And without wasting any time, let's go to what we called the layers mash. Now with the layers mash, we equally do the same thing that we have done before. We simply get these materials and add in 100 kilograms of the corn residue, but now you see the proportions of these other materials change a bit, but the figures you see are the ones that we feel are going to give you the best layers mash. And so when you add them, you also get a total of 145 kilograms of the layers mash. And on average, you are going to be feeding your 70 chicken 8 kilograms of this layers mash per day. And of course you can have a range. You can feed them between 7 to 9. Sometimes you really need to make those adjustments and make sure that your chicken are really doing well. And some other thing to note is we have included 5 kilograms of limestone in our layers mash, because at this stage your chicken need more calcium. So on top of the eggshells, we choose to add limestone. But if you can't find limestone, you can equally use more eggshells in your chicken feed. And at the end, these are our expected results. For any commercial layers, when you are feeding them very well, expect around 5 to 6 eggs per chicken per week. So in a week, expect a bird to give you 5 to 6 eggs. So when you have 70 of them, you need to multiply by maybe 5. Let's consider 5. So in 1 week, you expect around 350 eggs from your 70 chicken. So that means if we get fewer eggs, like you were saying, then it means that there could be something wrong with the way we feed our chicken or with the health of our layers. So we need to look at how best we can fix that. And one best way to do it is to check on the chicken feed that we give to our chicken, like we are trying to do. So if we experiment with these kind of feeds and we still have the same challenge, then this is what maybe could be the problem. Because if you are starting out a poultry farm, you really need to do a lot of experiments. So we are going to experiment our chicken on this type of feed, and we observe and see how best they perform. So among the observations that you can make could be the weak egg shells. So when you find that your eggs have a weak shell, always add some more calcium. So you can choose to add more eggshells, or you bring in some limestone. But I'm sure when you do that, the eggshells are going to be a bit strong. And sometimes your birds become, lame. You find they have weak bones and you find them leaping. That is a sign that your birds are lacking calcium. So you add more calcium or some more limestone in your chicken feed. And maybe you add some seashells. There is this other calcium which is always out there in chicken stores. Okay, in stores where they sell chicken feed, they are called sea snail shells. So you can equally use them to provide the calcium. That could be one observation that you can make. And secondly, you can observe that your birds are giving you few eggs, fewer than you expect, especially if you don't get between 5 and 6 per week per bird. It means that your layers are not doing well. So the best thing that we can do there is, did you know that 70% of an egg is purely water? So we make sure that birds take water as long as they take more feed. So the way we achieve that, we add some animal salt in our feed. Like, I think it should have been missing in your chicken feed. So this salt will give the birds thirst, and the birds will take more water. And when birds take more water, it means that the feed intake also increases. Birds will take more feed, which will increase at least on the number of eggs that you must expect per day. So when you experience few eggs, that could be the problem. You make sure that your birds take more clean water, and in time you give them the feeds in time. We expect the eggs to increase. And if you also see that it could be because of protein, maybe they are lacking some protein. You find that maybe the crayfish and the palm kernel nut shells are not enough to provide enough protein. So if it persists and you don't get enough eggs, we shall add something like soybean. Maybe soybean, or you choose this other fish. I mean the silver fish. It can do well. I'm sure it can do well. But if the crayfish is also trusted, then we can go on with the crayfish. And so another observation that we can easily make, you find that the growth rate is a bit low. You find maybe your layers are not growing at the rate that you expect them to grow. That could be a problem, maybe with the growers mash and maybe the chick mash. Mostly that must be a case where the protein is not enough. And so we'll look at how best we can include soybean or some fish. But we expect the crayfish to equally do some great work as far as proteins are concerned. At the end of the day, we expect your project to be profitable, and according to the way we calculate, we expect you to get around 200,000 naira per month. That's around 128 US dollars per month from your 70 layer chicken. And in Ugandan shillings, that's always around 500,000 Ugandan shillings. So that is quite a good amount in terms of profit. But of course, this is all from the sales that we make by selling eggs. And remember, we shall sell the offray as well, and we see that we experience some profit. And again, we have not subtracted any production cost, which is always there. So if you have incurred, maybe the cost of buying the chicks themselves, and maybe buying these other animal salt stuff and the premix, and maybe some of the ingredients, so even the transportation, but we expect you to incur in something small so that you experience some profit. Otherwise, thank you for sticking around until the end. Bye bye. See you in our next presentation.